Well, welcome back to Beyond the Message. Our series on the Apostles' Creed has been so helpful.
Oh yeah,
and I've loved the way that it has been just a call for us to be unified around what the church has historically unified around for years and years and years and years. And this week we covered how Jesus descended into hell, and on the third day rose again, ascending into heaven. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Josh Welchel,
and I'm Bob Pittenger.
Well, Bob, obviously in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry of our day and age, there's all sorts of horror films and depictions of Satan and demons. And I think for many people that creates a little bit of fear around the idea of hell. And so I wanted to start the discussion today just with the question is that a valid reason to be afraid of hell? Or if not, maybe you could answer what's the real reason that people should fear going to hell?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I don't think people really know what hell is like. I remember I was sharing the gospel with a guy who was telling him about Jesus, trying to get him to come to church, and he looks at me and says, I don't want anything to do with Jesus or church. All my friends are going to go to hell. I want to go to hell with them. We're going to party for all eternity. And I was like, man, you have no idea what you're saying, because the pictures of hell in the Bible, they are scary. They're scarier than those Hollywood movies. But really, hell is a place that was created for Satan and the demons who fell. It was created for them. It was not created for human beings. It is literally a godless place. And here on earth, we can't even begin to understand anything that's godless, because the Spirit is still here with us. And until the church is taken out, the Spirit's going to be here. Mm-hmm. He is holding back people from committing all types of heinous sins that they might commit were the Spirit not here. And in hell, there's no satisfaction of anything, because God gives us all the things we want here. And so in hell, there's whatever you're hungry for, you thirst for, whatever your desire is, there's nothing to satisfy it, because there's no God. And we're not created for that. We were created for God, a relationship with God. And I think the real reason to be afraid of hell is we don't get God. We don't get heaven. Imagine living your entire existence where you live in satisfaction. Mm-hmm. You're never thirsty again because you're with God. There's always enough to drink, to eat. The job you have, you love. You don't care if you're the high man on the totem pole or the low man on the totem pole. It doesn't matter, because you're doing what God called you to do in heaven. And so I think God created us for more than just the selfishness of, I want to go to hell so I can party for all eternity. And it's because we get God.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, when I think about the reason that we should fear hell, it's kind of going back to the idea of getting God. If God is all love, if he is all good, then the thought of being separated from love for eternity is just, that's terrifying.
Yes.
And there's obviously, we are hardwired as human beings to desire love, to desire purpose, to desire goodness and beauty. And obviously in our world today, there are so many people who chase those things in ungodly ways. But the fact that they're even chasing them to begin with shows that there's a desire for it.
Yes.
And we want what God offers. And apart from God, as you mentioned, we'll never be satisfied.
Right.
And so I think that is a very real reason to fear going to hell.
Yeah, I think what you said there, you look at, somebody says, how can people do these things? There, was it Pascal that said there's a God-shaped hole in every heart? And they're just trying to fill that hole. And some people think it's alcohol or drugs or money or their job or getting married, having kids. They're trying to fill it with something. And that's a hell all in itself.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing like chasing something that's never going to bring you the satisfaction you want. So I really like that, the satisfaction that only God can give you. And actually, it's not that he gives you, he's giving you himself.
Yeah.
It's like you said. So, this week, Pastor was talking about Jesus' descending into hell. And so if you think about Jesus' descent from heaven to earth, to the cross, to death, to the grave, and then to hell, how do you apply this example of making less and less of ourselves like Jesus did?
Yeah, we think about the descent, from heaven to earth, and from earth to the cross. Every every part of that was for our benefit.
Right.
Jesus took every step for the sake of relationship and bringing us closer to him. And so, for me, when I think about what should that look like in my life, if I'm modeling my life after Christ, then following his example means leveraging, in my mind, leveraging everything that God has given me for the sake of others.
Right.
That whether that's my resources, my time, my energy, that everything I do should not be about propping myself up. It shouldn't be about how do I make my life better? How do I chase my dreams and ambitions? But it should always be about how am I leveraging those gifts and the things that God has given for the sake of others, and lifting them up and helping those who are wounded and hurting and oppressed, and doing justice and mercy and goodness in the way that God calls us to. And so, when I think about modeling after Jesus, I think that really it's seeking the benefit of others is what comes to mind for me. But how about for you?
Yeah, I think even when Jesus first came on the scene, it reminds me of John the Baptist. John the Baptist was just like us. He was a follower of Jesus. He was proclaiming the Messiah, and his disciples said, hey, Jesus and his disciples are baptizing a lot more people than you. He's becoming a lot more popular than you. And you could tell they didn't like it. Yeah. And John the Baptist says, listen, he must increase and I must decrease. I think as we talked a few weeks ago about making Jesus Lord of our lives, I think as we make him Lord of our lives, what we're doing is we're turning things over to him. And though we work synergistically with him, he creates a desire in us to live like him. And then he creates a desire to be more like him. As we give him more and more, he increases and we decrease. And then people begin to see Jesus in us. It's kind of like if the moon didn't have the right kind of surface, we would never see the moon because the moon just reflects the sun.
Yeah.
And so the moon would pass by. We wouldn't be able to see it. You look at an eclipse and you can't see it. And so that's the same way with us. If we aren't reflecting Jesus, people are only going to see us. And I can tell you, when people see me, the things that I reflect in impatience and frustration, being vindictive and short-tempered, those aren't the things I want to reflect.
Yeah. And
so, but whenever I give Jesus more and more, when he increases in my life and I say, Lord, here's this area of my life, I love it. Is it Psalm 19 that says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing unto you. That's when we're becoming less, because we want what we think about to be what Christ thinks about. And the words we use would be Christ's words. And so then it lets us truly reflect him. And when people see us, they're like, man, there's something different about you. I remember I was reading a book one time about being a better husband. And I'm reading this book. And after 2 weeks, I came home and my wife is reading the book. And I said, what are you doing reading my book? And I said, it's on being a better husband. She goes, I don't know what you're reading, but the change in your life is so different. I want to know what it is because I want to see what's challenging you and changing you. She recognized the difference because I was giving over part of my life. And we had been married maybe 3 months at the time. So I didn't have it figured out like I do now after 30 years. So, but I do think it's, I become less, I decrease, he increases.
Yeah, that's so good. And obviously with all of the conversation and with this series, The Creed, the goal isn't just to try to think differently or stimulate our minds, but really the goal is that it would be heart transformation, that it would change the way we actually live out our lives and our faith. And so our hope and prayer for you is that you'll use the questions below to really challenge what it looks like to live differently as a result of the content that we're going through today. And so dive into those questions. If you have any questions about them or about Battle Creek, feel free to reach out to us at groups@battlecreekchurch.com.